Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is your host, Justin Johnson.
And this is your co host, Preston Dorr.
We all know that the election is coming up, and it seems to be a huge one.
It's pretty obvious, and we know that all the big companies are telling the public to register for voting and to vote.
First off, I'll introduce our President of the United States, Donald Trump, and I will talk about what he has done for the United States.
And after that, I will talk about former Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden, and what he is planning on doing. First off, Donald Trump.
So, we all know that people have a growing hate for Donald Trump and seem to question his authority and what he has done for the United States. But I've managed to compile a list of what he has done, and I will state the sources as where I got them from. And let me start reading. So first off, poverty when the Trump administration got in, when he was elected, it was at an all-time low, and this is by the BBC. It was at 10.5%. That is the record. Economy growth was at a constant rate under Trump at 2.5%, which was the same as Obama's peak. And the GDP of America under Trump peaked at 3 in 2018 and under and that was one under Obama's peak. So I would say he's doing pretty good, and this was stated by the Washington Post. Unemployment was at 4.7% when Trump was elected, and it's been going down until the coronavirus. Black unemployment was at 5% after Trump was elected. Food stamps decreased when Trump was elected, and the lowest was at 3.5 335. No, all right. It's at 35.7 million in 2019. It was made by the Washington Post. Sorry for the stuttering. Wages increased under Trump in an hourly earning starting at 2.5% to 3.4%. This is by the Washington Post. Development of the wall is to develop the wall is going good, as the president said during the debate. Trump has also done tax reform, slashing the corporate tax from a heavy 35% to 21%, which provides temporary benefits to people and their families, and the increased gross domestic product from 3% to 6%. And if you don't know, gross domestic product is basically manufacturing within the United States, which has been a rampant problem due to China uh, impacting the American steel industry. Let's also not forget the First Act law, which reforms the laws that Joe Biden passed under the Bill Clinton when he was in Senate with Bill Clinton, which basically made drug felonies do people that have drug felonies do increased time, and this was mainly targeted at the African American community.
Just for
But this
clarification,
First Act law reforms the laws that Joe Biden passed, made drug felonies lesser time, offered more rehabilitation programs in prison, and expands early release programs.
just for
And it,
clarification, he is talking about the 1994 crime bill that Joe Biden co authored.
yep, increased funding to historically black colleges, and this is from Fox, and police reform, and this is also from Fox. I rest my case.
Now I will introduce Joe Biden, former vice president. Based off of Joe Biden's website, Joe Biden has a plan to beat COVID-19, and the plan is to tell everybody to wear their mask. This was all from what he said in the last night's debate. He said that he would enforce wearing masks. He would also start rapidly testing everybody with COVID 19. He would also start rapid testing of the vaccines. And he would, quote, here's what I'm going to read directly off of his website. Number one, quote unquote, fix Trump's testing and tracing fiasco. Two, fix PPE problems, which is personal protective equipment, for good. Number three, provide clear, consistent evidence based on national guidelines for schools and other businesses. Number four, plan for the effective, equitable distribution of treatments and vaccines. Number five, protect older Americans and others high at risk. Six, rebuild and expand the defenses that Trump has dismantled to predict, prevent, and mitigate pandemic threats, including those coming from China. And finally, number seven, implement mask mandates nationwide by working with governors and mayors and by asking the American people to do what they do best: step up in a time of crisis. Next up, we have his gun control, which is mostly Kamala Harris, which Kamala Harris plans to basically ban a lot of high capacity magazines and AR-15s, and that's pretty much all I know on the gun control situation.
Hold up. Did you say ban AR-15s?
Ban assault weapons, apparently.
What are assault weapons? Because I'm pretty sure assault weapons are already banned. Because if you think about it, when they mention an assault weapon, they think of the AR-15, which is completely outrageous. Because first off, that's infringing on the Second Amendment, obviously. Because right to bear arms. They didn't say, you can't own certain types of arms, but you can own this type of arm. No, didn't say that in the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment shall not be infringed upon like any other amendment.
According to Wikipedia.org, assault weapon is a term used in the United States to define some type of firearms. This definition varies among regulation jurisdictions, but usually includes semi-automatic firearms chambered for centerfire ammunition, with a detachable magazine, a pistol grip, and sometimes other features such as a vertical forward grip, flash suppressor, or a barrel shroud. In which, with the attachments, I don't see how that makes a gun an assault weapon, because those are just attachments to one, decrease recoil and kick for the weapon, make it easier to fire. Barrel shrouds are to hide the flash so you can see throughout the sight better and not have a giant flame come up in your face. And a flash suppressor is to do the exact same thing.
Another thing is that these people that are passing these gun laws, they're passing it purely out of looks, which doesn't make any sense because automatic weapons are already banned in the United States in the 1986 law, where any gun that predates the manufacturing date of 1986 is legal, but anything after that is illegal. And what people forget to mention is that most gun crimes, for example, are committed with pistols or illegal weapons. And most people don't even bring that up. Anyways, what does Joe Biden have next?
Nation relations. America should be strong by itself with immigrations and open borders, which I have severe problems with.
Me
Open
too.
borders is basically like leaving all your house's windows and doors unlocked and saying, hey, why don't you come inside and live in my house for free without having to sign any papers, pay rent, do any of that. That's pretty bad because that would raise the crime rate. Like, say, if I let someone in my house and I don't trust them, or maybe I've never met them before, they could take all my stuff, they could steal, they could commit robbery, and if we just let a whole bunch of people in the United States without papers, background checks, all that, then crime rates could possibly skyrocket.
Yeah. And another example is that, for an analogy, is that, you have a roommate that doesn't do anything, but you basically do everything for your roommate. That's basically immigrants, illegal immigrants, for example, coming into America and then feeding off the welfare system and food stamps, which is costing America greatly with taxpayer money.
Next thing on Joe
Anyway,
Biden's list is free college. College was made expensive because of the colleges and loans, and back then people used to think college was a thing you could do and it wasn't needed. But again, there's already problems on this. Yes, free college would be very helpful, but there would also be increased competition in who gets into the college because if it's all free, then there's going to be so many people trying to get into the college, and then people are going to start talking about, oh, well, they only put in the smartest people. Oh, there's no diversity in people. It's mainly because free college would lead to higher competition. Now, with college costing money, there would be lower competition with smarter people, and there would be a lot less people trying to get in. So there would be a lot less of a crowd to pick through. It would be much easier in scholarships. Well, actually, no, scholarships wouldn't even be a thing if there was free college because scholarships pay for your college, but if there's no college to pay for, then scholarships would be pointless. And also, let's think about the taxes. If nobody's going to pay the teachers, there's not going to be an electric bill being paid. There's going to be no way to pay for the water bill. Who's going to pay for that? The taxpayers. The government would have to fund each and every college in the United States in order for them to be sustainable with electricity, running water, and other necessities and bills.
To expand what you just said about the colleges back then weren't, yeah, as you just said, weren't seen as a necessity, but a thing they were able to do. in which mostly rich people attended the colleges, and that's why the price was so low because people couldn't afford it back then. But now with government loans that they were giving out during the 1960s and 70s, colleges have been marking up the price just because people can now afford them, and that's why college is so expensive. And that's all I have to say.
Moving on with the villainization of the police force and increased violence in liberal cities, which is by Fox. Now, Joe Biden plans to defund the police department. Not defund, that is. Okay, actually, I'm just going to skip that topic because I do not think that's an actual thing on his website. And I'm just going to read the three main ones. Give every American affordable health care. Like I said earlier, the government involvement has led to high prices.
Because of competition.
Yeah, and if there's all private health care, then the price would be way down because, well, they don't have to pay.
There's
What, Justin?
You really don't have competition because these government programs are basically they take up the competition, and the private healthcares can't really make any money anymore. So now they have it all the way up. That's all I have to say.
And with no competition, that means they could just keep their price at a certain level, which would be good because everyone knows, hey, that's the price, that's what I have to get to pay for it. But then again, there would be no price lowering because with competition, that means you want a lower price than your competitor. And if there's no lower price there's no price to lower for competition, then it's just going to stay there. So there's no chance, let's say someone cannot pay for it. Then they just can't pay for it and they never will be able to for a long time.
All right. So now, since those are all the points that you made with Joe Biden, let's talk about that. So I'm pretty sure he is against he's against giving more funding to the police. He wants to defund them, which is a ridiculous idea because people complain about the police, they have all these weapons and stuff and like all this militarized things. That is simply not true because that's not paid with taxpayer money. That was given by the military, which is making new technologies to fight wars so that people don't die as much.
I'm just now
And
reading an
so,
article from the BBC, and they said that Joe Biden, this was an allegation from Trump saying that Joe Biden supports defunding the police, and what Biden has promised is that, here, this is an exact quote from this BBC article titled, U.S. 2020 election, does Joe Biden support defunding the police? This is an exact quote from one of the paragraphs. A statement from Mr. Biden's communications team on the 8th of June said he supported the need for reform focusing on funding educational programs as well as mental health and drug abuse treatment projects to allow police officers to focus on the job of policing. Now, with this kind of hints toward he wants to remove some of the funding for police to fund for other projects, in which I believe that Joe Biden would not completely defund the police or defund it too much, but Joe Biden would take away some of the funding from the police force to use for other projects.
which doesn't make sense because he's getting, since he has some socialist ideals that I don't agree with because I'm completely disagree with the entire idea of socialism, which will probably likely be another episode for another day. But if he wants to defund the police and not small, then what is the point of taking money from the businesses, their hard-earned cash, and then putting it to other programs? Because if you think about it, you could just get the money somewhere else without defunding the police. What the police needs is more funding because police don't have standardized training. It differs state to state, county to county. What we need is more funding for the police so that they can get better training and the stop the injustices that they have, which I don't believe is too bad, as people make it to seem in the media. But that's what I believe.
Now, moving back
Anyways,
to the Second Amendment problem, I just now found on Joe Biden's website, joebiden.com or alternatively antifa.com, Joe Biden It's called the Biden Plan to End Our Gun Violence Epidemic. Here, and I'm going to read it. Joe Biden knows that gun violence is a public health epidemic. Almost 40,000 people die as a result from firearm injuries. Blah, 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 blah. Now, moving down to what he's going to do. Hold gun manufacturers accountable. In 2005, then Senator Biden voted for the Against Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act, but gun manufacturers successfully lobbied Congress to secure its passage. This law protects these manufacturers from being held civilly liable for their products, a protection granted to no other industry. Biden will prioritize repealing this protection. My problem is, guns are sold by a third party most of the time, or sold illegally. So, why should we, say, charge Smith & Wesson for a crime committed from a gun that was bought by a local gun shop and then possibly stolen how would it be Smith & Wesson's fault? That's the point. Next,
Yeah, they're just the manufacturer. It can't be their fault that somebody committed a crime with it. They're just doing business.
Next up is to get weapons of war off of our streets. Already, this is wrong. There are no quote-unquote weapons of war in our streets. An AR-15, at least, is one of the examples. It is not a weapons of war. It is deemed a civilian rifle and is the civilian counterpart to the M4 assault rifle used by the United States military. Now, the M4 compared to the AR-15, yes, they both look the same in terms of stock models, but they are not the same inside. The AR-15 shoots the same round, but it's shot in semi-automatic, and I believe nowadays the AR-15 fully automatic conversion kit is illegal, and you have to go through possibly 9 to 12 months of a background checks and everything done by the ATF to even get a fully automatic pistol or any fully automatic weapon.
And as I just said about the 1986 law, it's practically illegal to obtain a automatic firearm in the United States.
Next up, in that subcategory of get weapons of war off our streets, he says he wants to ban the manufacture and sale of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Now, the term assault weapon is very gray. Assault weapon could mean anything from pistols that can fire fast or have hair triggers and stuff like that, all the way to AR-15s with 100-round drum mags, sights, pistol grips, foregrips, and all of the above. And he claims that federal law prevents hunters from hunting migratory game birds with more than 3 shells in their shotgun. That means our federal law does more to protect ducks than children. It's wrong. Joe Biden will enact legislation to once again ban assault weapons. This time, the bans will be designed based on lessons learned from the 1994 bans. For example, the ban on assault weapons will be designed to prevent manufacturers from circumventing the law by making minor changes that don't limit weapons lethality while working to pass this legislation. Biden will also use his excessive authority to ban the importation of assault weapons. Another thing is he wants to ban high-capacity magazines. Now, although yes, low-capacity magazines will mean the perpetrator would have to reload more, but that doesn't stop him from carrying up to 1,000 rounds of ammunition. The perpetrator could just have a bunch of those magazines. Yes, it would cost more, but if somebody's planning on committing a mass crime, do they really care about how much money they'll have left after? No, because they will probably be dead or life in prison.
That's true. And for example, the legislations and the laws that they passed in California make no sense because it was mostly based on looks of the weapon and not how it performs. And let's go over the history of the AR-15, in which people like to think that the AR-15 stands for Assault Rifle 15, which no, that's completely untrue. It stands for Armalite Rifle, which Armalite was the original creator of the AR-15 during the 1950s. Armalite then sold the license for the AR-15 and its counterparts, for example, like the AR-10. They sold it to Colt, in which Colt then produced the military rifle known as the M16, which I think the U.S. still uses to this day. Am I correct?
I think the Marines or the Army uses the M16A4.
So yeah, basically, the AR-15 is a civilian rifle and not a weapon of war, because why would you even have a semi-automatic rifle and a weapon of war when your enemies are going to have fully automatic like AKs or whatever they're using?
Now, I'm going to shorten this section a little bit, so I'm just going to read the headlines of each subsection. So, for the third one is regulate possession of existing assault weapons under the National Firearms Act, in which basically regulate the possession by increasing background checks, which is already a 9 to 12 months background check for fully automatic weapons done by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, also known as the ATF. Second is buy back the assault weapons and high-capacity magazines already in our communities. Now, the problem with a buyback would mean that they have to buy back each individual gun. But what if said gun was untraceable? Let's say they find a gun, they hear that it's owned by John Doe. They go to his house, and they ask, hey, we need to buy back this AR-15 that you own. And it says here that you own a few other attachments for it. And the guy says, oh, yeah, that was stolen 3 years ago. What are they going to do about it? There's hardly any possible way to find out who stole the gun if it's from such long ago. The third, and last one, is reduce stockpiling of weapons, which I kind of agree with. Which is, in order to reduce the stockpiling of firearms, Biden supports legislation to restrict the number of firearms an individual may purchase per month to 1. Now, this still, there would be a way to get more guns. It's just you'd have to get certain guns every month and make your planning a lot longer. But this would stop someone from buying, let's say, 4 to 5 to 6 guns that fast. Now, I agree with this, actually. It would help with buying, like, mass counts of ammo, buying a whole slew of guns in, like, one day, and buying multiple magazines in one day.
Oh, I just dislike the entire idea of restricting gun ownership because, again, it fringes on the Second Amendment, but nobody's going to talk about that. To be honest, yeah, basically all the laws that Joe Biden wants to pass basically infringes on the Second Amendment.
All right, now let's move to stuff Trump wants to do. Let me just head to his website real quick.
I already gave you guys information about what Trump has done already. Let's see what he wants to do more. If he gets reelected, which I hope he does, to be honest, dude. Because I don't think Joe Biden's a really good option for the United States of America. For one example, his ideals on socialism, and to be honest, socialism will not work in America. And it hasn't worked. For example, the USSR, the communist government that was headed by multiple dictators such as Stalin, Nazi Germany, they were called National Socialists. And guess what happened there? 6 million Jews dead. Let's talk about Venezuela, which is currently in a civil war right now. Let's talk about Cuba, which is still under dictatorship. Let's talk about China. China, they're also socialist/communist. You know what's happening there, Preston?
Concentration camps.
Yes.
Now I'm gonna add on to the Cuban problem. The reason Florida is getting such a high vote for Trump, besides the countless amount of elders and rednecks, is Cubans. Now, a lot of Cubans are escaping Cuba by boat to go to Florida. Now, Cubans know socialism. They've been in it for a long time. And the reason a lot of people are escaping Cuba is how bad the situation is down there because of socialism.
Yeah. And a lot of Venezuelans, too.
Now,
see,
continue?
A lot of people like to point where socialism has worked is in the Scandinavian countries. Well, that's pretty much a lie because, first off, the Scandinavian countries such as Denmark and Norway said that they're a free market, not socialism. And it's hard to standardize how socialism has worked there because it varies country to country. And another thing is that they've decreased government funding on programs and just anything involving with government programs and stuff because it's put a heavy tax burden on the people. And anyways, in America, since we don't have socialism and taxes aren't that high, the average American gets more money than people in Sweden because of taxation in Sweden, since they get lesser money because of the heavy taxations.
Anyway, moving on to Trump's policies, let's move on to healthcare, which we talked about with Joe Biden. He wants to make it universal and one government plan. For Donald Trump's Healthcare policies. He wants to cut prescription drug prices. Now, this would be very good, as a lot of people cannot afford pills. And also, sorry, I got a notification on my computer. You will hear that. I apologize for it. Next. Oh, by the way, prescription drug prices could also include EpiPens and insulin, which is needed for diabetics and allergic people. Or people with allergies. Sorry. Next, Donald Trump plans to put patients and doctors back in charge of the healthcare system. Now, what this means is that healthcare will be more privately owned by the doctors and the patients, which basically means that big companies can privately own healthcare, have competition, and pick prices, and they won't be expensive for the government needs. Next, he wants to lower healthcare insurance premiums, which not really sure what that means because I'm not sure what a healthcare insurance premium is. He also wants to end surprise billing, which means you get an unexpected bill from your healthcare provider, which can be a lot of money, and you aren't ready to pay that much money that fast without much notice. Next, he wants to cover all pre-existing conditions, protect Social Security and Medicare, and protect our veterans and provide world-class healthcare and services. Do you have anything on this, Justin?
Well, first off, as we had just said, the reason why healthcare is so high is because of these government programs and the government getting involved within healthcare, because the government is basically creating, they're creating competition within the privately owned companies, in which is costing America and Americans on healthcare. And another thing is that migrant doctors have to, for example, migrant doctor from like Germany or Britain wants to come to America to practice medicine. What they have to do is that they have to get retaught the same things that they were taught in Great Britain or Germany or anywhere, because Americans, they don't really trust them that well, and they basically need them to go back to medical school to get a license to practice medicine, which will cost them more money. So what I think a good thing that Trump will do, if he should, I think he absolutely should, is allow migrant doctors. Maybe you probably have to do some background checks and see what happened, what they did in the other countries, and see how they will fit into the American healthcare system and how will they perform. That'd be a great idea, in my opinion.
Moving on to the next topic about immigration, which Joe Biden's policy was to fully open America's borders, which me and Justin thought was a very bad idea. Donald Trump plans to block illegal immigrants from becoming eligible for taxpayer-funded welfare, healthcare, and free college tuition. Now, what some people may think, if they didn't hear that correctly, is they want to block immigrants from all of that. No, it means illegal immigrants, such as people who don't have visas or passes to live in the United States.
Or green cards.
Yes, green cards. Next is mandatory deportation for non-citizen gang members. That means if a gang member is arrested and they are not a U.S. citizen, they will be deported back to their original country. Donald Trump also wants to fully dismantle human trafficking networks because, as we all know, a lot of human trafficking happens down in South America and a lot of those poorer countries that cannot do so much about them. Now, I'm stuttering. Donald Trump will attempt to fully dismantle, investigate, and take apart human trafficking rings and networks. Next, Donald Trump wants to end sanctuary cities to restore our neighborhoods and protect our families. A sanctuary city, from what I believe, haven't heard the definition, is a city where illegal immigrants are fully welcomed or smuggled through to get to the United States. Next, he wants to prohibit American companies from replacing United States citizens with lower-cost foreign workers, which will create more jobs for American citizens. And lastly, he will require new immigrants to be able to support themselves financially, which means that the new immigrants will not have to leech off of welfare and healthcare and free college tuition. Any opinions on that, Justin?
My opinion is that it's outrageous how people call Trump a racist because he wants to put a wall on Mexico to secure the border so that we don't have illegal immigrants leeching off of the American welfare and food stamps. And it's an outrageous claim because it's so reasonable. Because those government programs, because there's so many people on them, is leeching off of American taxpayer dollars. And let's not forget how people call him xenophobic and all these horrible things about our president. It's simply don't understand the problem. Illegal immigrants are costing Americans. For example, what you just said about illegal immigrants and companies getting those illegal immigrants to work American jobs for lower prices, in which that's completely outrageous because, for example, you have two businesses, let's say a bakery. One bakery hires citizens, American citizens, and pays them well, while an illegal immigrant just wants work, any work to support himself that he can take back to his family in Mexico or anywhere else. And they'll be willing to get paid anything. So the other company will practically pay them the lowest minimum wage within their state because minimum wage is determined by the state, not the government, which is a good thing, in my opinion. And what will basically happen is that the other good businesses that's hiring American workers and legal citizens is that they'll go out of business because they cannot compete with the other business that's hiring illegal immigrants. I rest my case.
Next, we will be moving on to the police case. Now, Joe Biden, as I've read from a BBC article, seems that he will partially defund the police in order to fund other projects. Under Trump, Trump will fully fund and hire more police and law enforcement officers. Now, fully funding will mean that they can get better equipment. They will be able to get much better training because they need money for that. They'll be able to pay their police officers better. They'll be able to pay more overtime in the case of riots, protests, and other cases. He will increase criminal penalties for assaults on law enforcement officers, which means if you attack a law enforcement officer, you will have to pay more of the time than if you attacked a normal citizen. He will prosecute drive-by shootings as acts of domestic terrorism, bring violent extremist groups like Antifa to justice because Antifa goes through towns and destroys everything. And they hurt police officers, they devalue our police officers, and we do not want that. And he will also end cashless bail and keep dangerous criminals locked up until their trial. Any opinions?
I completely agree with everything that Trump just said. It's that what mind boggles me is that Joe Biden, and he actually said this. He said Antifa is just an idea. It is not an idea. It is literally a terrorist organization. Look it up. Trump considers, and the U.S. government literally considers Antifa as a terrorist organization, which it is. It basically is. For example, I remember seeing this one guy. He was holding yeah,
On
a
video.
speech. Yeah, like
It was a
a
flaming
speech.
spear. It was a spear that had a rag taped around it, a makeshift spear with a rag around it, soaked in gasoline, and it was on fire. Now, a police officer was in his car behind the man. He got out of his car and yelled at him to stop. What happened next was the cop edged up with this car a little bit. The Antifa member laid down the spear, as in he pointed it toward the cop car. He ran full speed and speared inside the cop car, in which then after that, the guy started running. The cop drew his Glock and started shooting through his windshield at the man. I do not know if the perpetrator was hit any times or if the perpetrator lived or died or is in the hospital. All I know is that a flaming spear went through the cop car and most likely caught it on fire.
And when I was talking about, there's a black man. He was holding a rally against big tech companies censoring people. And what happened is that an Antifa member, the dude had his back turned to the Antifa member. The Antifa member just swings his fist into the dude's like jawline, and managed to knock two teeth out of his mouth.
They will
And the dude
literally
was
attack people for their opinions. Antifa thinks that they are fighting fascism, but they're actually just fighting quote-unquote fascism with real fascism. They will attack you for your opinion.
And it's just absurd how Joe Biden literally said this is just an idea. Joe Biden, it's not an idea. It's a dangerous organization that should be jailed. All their members jailed because of what they have done.
And if you do not believe that they are a group, they have Twitter accounts for every city. Now, I don't see the Republican Party or communism, which is an ideology. I do not see Portland communism or Nashville communism. You don't see that, but you see that with Antifa. So that proves that they are a group, and you can join Antifa, which means that they are an active group. You cannot join communism as it's not a group, it is an ideology.
It just mind boggles me. Anyways, I think we should move on from what the presidents want to do, the candidates. Well, let's talk about the recent debate. What do you think of the recent debate, Preston?
With the debate, I feel like Joe Biden was acting very shady in the debate because he was not wanting to answer any questions that had to deal with plans. When somebody asked him about his plans, like the one to fight COVID, the one with China and them stealing all of our jobs and ruining our steel industry, he simply said, he pretty much dodged it. And he said, he kept bringing up the American family, which made me angry. He kept trying to pull at people's emotions instead of giving them an actual plan on what he's going to do. He would just say, oh, imagine you're missing someone at the table, the family table, this, that. You put your hand over in your bed where your wife or your husband would be like, Joe, we want to hear your plan. We don't want to hear you be sympathetic. Yes, we need sympathy. That is a normal human thing. But we want to hear your plan. That was the originality of the question. We wanted to hear your plan, but you would simply not get it or give it.
Well, Trump, on the other hand, he was actually giving plans and giving hope to the people. He gave hope and he gave plans, which was a key and essential thing. But people don't seem to really get at that because they're like, oh, Trump was just ranting. No, Joe Biden was, because he was basically, as you just said, dodging the question. And it just mind boggles me how people actually support Joe Biden. And I literally have 125 reasons, and this is by an article. This is an article by the Weston David Pagano. This is a small article company with 458 followers. They literally compiled 125 reasons not to vote for Biden. And let me just add some. For example, on race, he led the fight against desegregating schools and continued it years after it had been proven a success, and it was even being defended by Republicans, claiming perpetuating school segregation would preserve black pride. His bill to stop abusing was so unpopular, even a senator who was a leader in the KKK opposed it. Another thing, chose to work with and passionately support many of the worst racists and segregationists in America.
One of them being Robert Byrd, who was part of the KKK, and I believe he was a recruiter for the KKK.
Let's think about immigration. As VP, he expanded the anti-immigration system Trump now uses by 3,600%. He was also the one people thought Trump built the cages that kids were in. No, it was found out that they were built in 2014 under Joe Biden and the Obama administration. People want to put all the blame on Trump when Trump hasn't done anything wrong. Sure, he may have said some dumb things. People slip up, just like Joe Biden. But people don't give as much credit as Trump deserves. Let me list one more thing that Joe Biden has done. His foreign policy, he now lies about this Iraq war vote to quote often, yet still also says he'd do it again. And let me just explain what this Iraq. And here it says here, Biden says he opposed Iraq war effort immediately, despite multiple public remarks supporting it. So he clearly is a liar. He even lied about, he was saying, oh, this is America. There are no such thing as blue and red states. He literally contradicted himself in 15 seconds. After that, he said the coronavirus cases are spiking up in red states. That is clearly him contradicting himself. That's all I have to say.
As he said, he does not see the states as red and blue states. He sees them as American states. We see he's used that quote so many times. It's mind-boggling. As Justin always says, mind-boggling. Haha. But anyway, literally right after that, he just said the coronavirus cases are spiking in red states. Okay, Joe, are you going to see them as red and blue states or American states? Make up your mind, Joe.
And literally, Joe Biden cannot make up his mind. Anyways, I'm pretty sure Trump, he pretty much won that. And here, I got something to tell you. People on Twitter during the debate, when he said that cartels, smugglers, and coyotes are the ones smuggling children into America, and the Obama and
They
Biden
thought it was literal
administration.
coyotes.
Yeah, you also read about that?
No, I heard about it a bunch.
I watched. I watched a video and read an article about it. The left are so dumb to believe that actual animals are smuggling children. I didn't even know what the term meant, but the term means basically immigrant smugglers and all that. I was smart enough. I didn't even know what the term was. I was smart enough to know he didn't literally mean coyotes.
Now, speaking of quote-unquote coyotes, not the animal, but the actual immigrant smugglers, there was a video online of this heavily armed group of smugglers. They were armed with large long-barreled weapons, such as AR-15s. That's just an example. I'm not sure what the make and model of each weapon were. They were heavily armed, and what they would do is they would drive up to a gate that was right on the border, and then they would take the civilians and move them to a second truck, which would drive to Texas cities, like smaller Texas towns near the border. People actively smuggling Mexican civilians, and I'm not just saying they're only Mexicans. This was just at the Mexican border, which they were most likely Mexican civilians.
And another thing is that Joe Biden wants to put more things on asylum, like people are seeking asylum. People don't understand what the term asylum means. Asylum is granted to political refugees. For example, somebody facing prosecution in their country because of their political views. For example, like a party leader. That's what asylum is. And basically, Joe Biden wants to increase the asylum requirements. Well, not requirements, but like reasons why you can apply for asylum, which doesn't make any sense because asylum is only granted to political refugees, and it should be like that. But Joe Biden, of course, wants to have open borders and all of that, which is completely idiotic and, in my eyes, just downright wrong.
So someone shared online this one clip I saw. It was Joe Biden saying Donald Trump should take full responsibility. Donald Trump is fully responsible, and he does not claim to be responsible. Then Donald Trump responded, I take myself fully responsible, and the look on Joe Biden's face was a pure shock. Joe Biden did not expect Trump to actually take full responsibility for what happened.
Yeah. It's just absurd about why people just support Joe Biden in general, dude.
It's because
He's
they
clearly...
a lot of people don't even like Joe Biden. They just want to vote for him because they don't want Trump in office. Because they know if they vote someone third party or a lower party, then it's just the votes. They claim the vote's going to go to Trump because it takes a vote away from the two big candidates.
Is that practically people think, oh, like voting's like picking your own personal candidate. No, what really happens is that your vote basically influences the electoral college, which puts in like little points to see who wins, and they just tally up the points.
It basically just the state representatives, I believe. I think it's the state representatives. They will look at who voted for Trump and who voted for Biden, and then the third party candidates in every state. Then they will make their vote influenced by what the population wants, the state population wants. So let's say Kentucky, or actually no, Florida. Let's say 75% of Florida, this is just an example, I'm making all this up. 75% of Florida wants to vote for Trump. And then the 25%, oops, sorry for that voice crack, wants to vote for Joe Biden. Then the state representatives will decide, hey, our population really wants Donald Trump to be put into office. So then that person will say, or one of the state representatives will say, yes, I want to vote for Joe Biden to represent my represent my state, and then they'll vote for Trump. I meant to say Trump, not Joe Biden. If I said Joe Biden on accident, then there might be someone who says, I think I should vote for Joe Biden, even though we want Trump, and then they will vote for Joe Biden. And then once all the electoral college votes are put together, the candidate who has 270 electoral college votes or above will win the election.
Yeah. And it's basically what it's turned to is just basically like a strategic war. And you got to figure out what places do I have to take in order to win, which is completely mind-boggling and just absurd to me because you know it just doesn't make sense to me. Because I thought it was about the American people, not the electoral colleges making the decisions on who they want for president.
Well, I
But
mean,
that
your vote technically contributes to it because your vote influences the electoral college as they see that a lot of their state say it wants to vote for Trump or Joe Biden, then they will make that they will make their vote based on what the populace wants, unless they choose otherwise.
well, I thought I'm pretty sure the no, America was founded on the people. Shouldn't it be the people voting? Because the electoral college is just basically disassembles that entire idea because it's not the people; it's the people that are above you making the decision on who is going to be president.
Now let's talk about something that Trump mentioned a lot during the debate and what China mentioned a lot during the debate. They were China, haha, Biden. They were basically saying, like, say Trump. He was trying to talk about the Hunter Biden situation, which I think the Hunter Biden situation will not affect the election because even Trump's advisors said that he shouldn't even bother with the Hunter Biden investigation before the election because it just won't do anything. It won't influence voters, and Joe Biden keeps picking at Trump for quote unquote getting his money from China.
Even though the Hunter Biden situation literally backs up the claim that he gets it from Ukraine and other foreign countries, which I don't even get into that.
Now
But
let's
it,
oh what?
no, you can go.
Now let's move on to the voters for each political party or political candidate. Now, a lot of Joe Biden supporters want to vote in Joe Biden because it's someone other than Trump. And I feel like this is a very, very bad idea. You should not vote for the person or the person's personality. You should vote for what they're going to do for the country. Because if I vote for Joe Biden because I don't like Donald Trump's tweets, for example, that's a bad idea. Because let's say Joe Biden could possibly ruin something that you really need. Let's say you're a poor family and you need affordable health care. Joe Biden could possibly ruin that. I'm not saying he would. I'm just saying I'm just giving it as an example. And
Well,
also, not Joe Biden is losing a lot of the vote from the people of color because the people tend to realize that the Democrats are trying to influence the people of color. They're trying to tell them how to vote, in which then the people are just wanting to vote for the specific person. But then they're realizing that some of the people are just trying to use them and that they should really be free voters and free thinkers and vote for who they want without judgment, which a lot of liberals and Democrats, if they see a Republican person of color, they will harass them, they will tarnish their reputation, and they will say that why are you voting for Trump? He's ruining you. He's trying to be racist, which is all fake. He's not going to try and ruin any specific race. That's not Trump's goals, as shown
as I
earlier.
had mentioned before, he literally gave more funding to historically black colleges. And let me just say something: the Democrats feel entitled to people of color's vote, which is absolutely absurd because no one's entitled.
Because the
To
Democrats
people's
need the person of people of color vote to win the election.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of Trump supporters would be considered as racist because, well, they vote for Donald Trump, which is completely untrue. Just because you vote for somebody, the candidate, does not make you racist or homophobic or sexist. That's just completely false.
Yeah. Well, Trump did ban transgendered people from the military, which is completely reasonable in my eyes. Because why would you want uh, LGBTQ communities into the military. It doesn't mix well. Remember the "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" during the early stages of the military, during like the 1930s, 1940s, something like that.
The reason for the transgender military policy. Hold on, let me just turn off my ad blocker because I hate news articles that do that. It is to. Trying to find it.
Oh, I should correct myself.
It is. It
Don't
is
ask,
about
don't
the
tell.
don't tell. It is about the don't ask, don't tell policy.
Which was to correct myself, it was instated in December 21st, 1993. In which obviously no, I think it's a good idea to not let gay men, bisexuals, and lesbians be into the military, because then they can just basically start relationships, and then it just won't mix well into the military.
I feel
It
like
just won't.
the LGBTQ population, in according to uh, any like gays, bisexuals, not transgenders. I wasn't talking about that, but I'm talking like gays, lesbians, bisexuals. I feel like that's okay. I feel like they should be banned from creating relationships, like dating other military servicemen, at least servicemen and women, at on base or during combat. But I feel like they should be allowed into the military if they choose to be in the military.
What are Joe Biden's view on abortion?
Pro, I believe.
Pro-abortion? Ugh. No, I do not agree with that. What I hate about the left on their view of abortions is that when somebody makes the argument of you're basically killing a human life, in which you are, they'll make, oh, at the early stages, it's just a clump of cells. People forget to realize cells are still living, so that's still technically killing life. And then they also try to make the claim, oh, in early stages, the baby's not sentient. Okay, if it's, and when I just to expand on like the sentient, they also say it's underdeveloped. How? Let's say, people with disabilities are underdeveloped. Do I still get to kill one? Or say you're in a coma or sleeping. Do I still get to kill you because you're not sentient at the moment? Does that still give me a reason why you should kill something? No.
People saying that a baby isn't sentient, it is because pregnant women, at least from what I've heard, can feel a baby kicking at times, literally like kicking the inside of the womb. Now, how would a baby not be sentient and also start kicking their feet?
Yeah, it just mind boggles me. And the left seem to take pride in taking abortions, which is absolutely crazy because studies have shown that abortion leads to substance abuse, suicide, depression within women when they get abortions. It, it just,
People
it
who
makes me sick to my stomach.
people who also say that men shouldn't have an opinion in abortion, that's completely untrue. Men should have an opinion in abortion because it still is their child. They um
They made it.
they've also
They're the
they helped
they're
provide life because a woman as far as now could not produce their own babies besides with bone marrow, which is still in the the early stages of development, and it doesn't work as well as human semen. Now, it is still a man's baby because he helped provide the life to that baby.
yeah. And basically the media has also influenced people to get like abortions and stuff because it's so quirky and fun to do. For example, there's literally a movie that's coming out, and it might be already out. I don't know. Where literally these two friends go on a road trip to get an abortion. I cannot make this up.
What's the movie called?
I can't remember, but I swear on God and on my mom, there's a literal movie that is coming out where the main plot is that a female friend and her go on a road trip to go get an abortion
That's
in
terrible.
secret. I know it's terrible because the media and Hollywood, not to mention pedophile wood, Hollywood is run by pedophiles. Let's be real. Pedowood is basically influencing people with these leftist ideals, and it just also makes me sick to my stomach.
Now, moving back to the LGBTQ thing, I feel like some people might get offended from what you said because you don't want like say some LGBTQ in the military. I don't feel like people should get offended over that. That's just your opinion, and you're entitled to have an opinion. I don't
Because
think
of the First Amendment.
yeah, because I think some people would classify as you as homophobic for saying that they shouldn't be allowed in the military because they could possibly start
No,
relations.
look. I'm not against gay people. Let's be real with that. I literally have a gay stepbrother. Let's be real with that. His name is Christopher, by the way. Well, we also call him Chris. But like, I am not homophobic. I'm just gonna say that. I also have a transgendered Albanian friend. Am I right, Preston?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
He
cool.
can back me up with that. Yeah. Just saying, I'm not homophobic or against the LGBTQ community. I'm just saying they shouldn't be allowed in the military.
Now, as we are coming up on 55 minutes in this podcast, we would like to start a conclusion. If you choose to vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump, we honestly can care less. Now, personally, we choose Donald Trump because we like his uh, proposals to fix the United States and to help out the lower class in a better way than making things free. And keep in mind that we are allowed to have an opinion, but we only support Donald Trump. We are not voting for him because we are underage.
We are minors.
We are
We're
minors.
minors.
We cannot legally vote.
But let's be real. If minors could vote, it'd be absolute chaos because the Democratic Party will always win because that's what
Because
people are teaching their kids now.
all social media, a lot of social media influencers, like Joe Biden because well, it's kind of the thing. And if you vote for Trump, cancel culture is going to come after you.
That's true.
Anyway, as we are gaining on 56 minutes, like I said earlier, we are going to wrap this up in saying vote for who you want. And remember, the freedom of speech is the most important part of the Bill of Rights, and you should never, I'm forgetting all my
Infringe upon those rights. Have a good night, have a good evening, and have a good morning. This has been Justin Johnson
and Preston
and
Dorr
with the Stars and Stripes Experience.
signing
Good night.
off.